Welcome back, my indie drama llamas. My name is Derek Jackman, and I'm joined here with my co-host.
Dan, aka Cove, aka RizGod 2.0.
Yep, Rizgod 2.0. We got to get you on Survivor, man.
Heck yeah.
Um, you would do well. I mean, you're writing a show, an elimination-based show.
I prefer
That
Big
is
Brother, but
very
I don't know if I
similar.
can make it on Survivor. I don't know.
Both of us are showrunners of our own respective shows, and we have opinions concerning indie animation as well as reality television. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to bridge the gap, make them symbiotic, and talk about them, especially what's going on in the community. What are some trends and topics that we can talk about? So, welcome to the Final Marshmallow. Last week, we had the opportunity to host Adam Rudine, who is an indie animator within the community itself. Some of you may know him as Blue Studios, otherwise known as Blue Boy himself. He is the creator of Reunion, which is a parody of Total Drama Island, which is a parody of Survivor, so on and so forth. We got to address some of the misconceptions within the community itself concerning the project of Reunion, as well as talk about his show Retro Reality. I have to make sure not to mix that up with Reality Resort because it's
Yeah,
two RRs
I
right
know.
now.
Yeah, unfortunate.
For those of you who don't know this, I'm assuming you do, though, if you're watching this podcast. Dan, aka Cove, aka RizGod 2.0, is the creator of Reality Resort. So it's honestly really cool kind of being in the middle of both ends, seeing Retro Reality, Reality Resort, and then I'm just kind of like right in the middle, observing both of these shows. Dan, let me ask you a question before we proceed forward. What was your perspective and experience like on the podcast last week with Adam?
Yeah, it was pretty cathartic, I thought, to just kind of not fully wrap the bow on Total Drama Reunion. Um, but it was just kind of nice to hear Adam's perspective on things and just sort of, have that, like, at least my probably final conversation about Reunion. It was cool to just hear his insight and his experience behind kind of how all that shaped up. And it was actually kind of cool. I didn't realize that I was, me and my silly little PowerPoints were an inspiration to him. Because in many ways, Reunion and it blowing up was an inspiration to me. So, like you kind of said, we all just take inspiration from each other and we just kind of use that as fuel. So it was a really great time just to hear what he had to say about it all. So
Yeah, but it was an honor having him on because this is a guy that, you know, that was able to prove a theory which was going on in the community, and that was the fact that this community itself is thriving. It's alive, and even though that project happened about 5-6 years ago, people have been starving to know what happened to Reunion. What was the truth behind Reunion, especially behind the scenes, but also what were the plans for Reunion. And so, if you're interested in watching that podcast, go to last week's podcast and dial in because Adam shares some really interesting things about that. Some things that he had planned and some things that he didn't have planned. But anyways, that's last week's news. So what is this week's news? What we're going to be talking about today is all things Total Drama Island. We've kind of skirt around this topic a little bit, but this is something that really inspires us, and we haven't been able to kind of dive into or explore this universe too much beyond the surface level comments that we've had in the past. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. We want to rank the seasons as well. So, like, from worst to best, which seasons are in which category. And then we want to talk a little bit about how indie animation sizes up to total drama and what the future is of Total Drama Island, if we even think that there's a future for this show. But before we dive into kickstarting this podcast off, I think we should get an update on Reality Resort. Cove, give us an update on your show.
yeah, so episode 12 is wrapping up pre-production work as we're speaking. We're recording this on March 31st. So episode 12 work is wrapping up pre-production. It's moving into animation, hoping to get it out in May. We have a tentative release date in the middle of May. Not going to reveal that yet. And then episode 13 work's going to start right after. So we're looking at May and June releases for episodes 12 and 13. And then we'll probably have more news within the next month about what comes next after that, because we're only funded for those 2 episodes. Yeah, looking forward to those 2 episodes. They're 2 of my favorite, I think, that we've done so far. So I'm excited.
You get an experience that a lot of people don't really see or view. They don't really know what happens behind the scenes. And so this is your world that you're living in and that you're experiencing. But I remember for me, when people would submit their lines over the Google Drive, I got really giddy because it
Yeah.
was like it was a script I had written, and so it was really exciting to hear how the actors would portray the already scripted out storyline within my mind. So, what is that experience like for you?
Yeah, it's equally as fun. Every time I see a storyboard come to life, every time I listen to the voiceover, it's just really cool to see what other people can do with my ideas and with what I've written. It's always a really fun feeling, especially as it comes full circle into the actual animation itself. I do have a forward thinking mind a lot of the times, like what's next, but I've been challenging myself to try and be more in the moment and be more grateful for what we've been able to do and what's happening in the now. That we're here now. So it's been a long couple of years. It's been like 2 years now, maybe even more, since we kind of started this journey. So yeah, it never gets old to me. I enjoy every time we're able to put an episode out, and I think part of that is also because of the infrequency in which we are putting episodes out. So whenever we get to a moment where the final product is coming out, it's always a really special moment. So
Well, give us a skosh. Like, don't give us a spoiler of the most recent episode, but give us a little sprinkle. If you were to describe this most recent episode that hasn't been released for Reality Resort
mm,
in one word,
mm.
how would you describe it?
One word for episode 12. Um, Heartbreak. Let's do that.
Oh, dude. Oh man. Okay. Okay.
They're gonna
That's awesome.
they'll figure it out.
The next topic that we have on the agenda today is the question of the day, which we're going to make a series regular on this podcast. Today's question is, which character would you bring back if Total Drama were to do a reunion season? And let's eliminate Adam's reunion contestants too. Barring all of those contestants that Adam had on Total Drama Reunion, which character would you bring back, Cove? And this could be from any generation.
Noah. I don't think that
Okay.
yeah. I don't know. Like put me on the spot there.
Well, I'll tell you what. No, I think Noah's a great answer, but if that's the answer you want to lock in, I want to hear what story arc you would like to explore with said character. So I'll let you think about it for a second, and I'll give you my character. Gen 1 is such a tempting pool to dive into. I mean, I love Justin. I think Justin could be explored more because he's just so funny. And
Yeah.
you know what? I think a Justin Noah alliance would be hilarious. We saw hints at that in Total Drama Island. Justin, the anti-me. I loved that. I loved that, especially if they were like united against like a bigger cause, like
Mm,
Alejandro. Like, I think that you could easily explore that kind of dynamic with Noah and Justin and have them actually take down the hybrid of them both, which is Alejandro. Um, but in such a dumb way that is comedic. However, I do think that I would dive into Gen 3 to bring back a character, which
mm.
is surprising because a lot of people would be like, okay, Gen 2, that's understandable. But Gen 3, I have to say it, I would bring back Samey. I think Samey deserves
Interesting.
her. She deserves a little bit more story. I felt like um, there's a lot more we could explore with that character, and I also think she would bounce off of the Gen 1 contestants really well as well. So the story arc I would give Samey is I'm all about completing character development. I see a flaw in a character and I just want to write to fix it. You know what I mean? Or to find resolution to that or to find solace in some way. And so for Samey, it was all about having the security to be confident in herself, and detach from her sister. And I felt like she never really got to be her own person. I think her story needs to be one of independence, but it also needs to be one of gaining an appreciation of one's own value. And I don't think Samey really had that development in her own season. Sure, she took out her sister in a vengeful way, but that, I mean, we talked about this. Nowadays, people don't really know the difference between a villain and a hero because they think that that's just based on who's writing the story, and that's so not true.
Mm.
You know, a villain will seek vengeance, whereas a hero will seek mercy. And with Samy's storyline, it's like, was she justified in her revenge? Totally. 100%. But I would like to see her have a storyline that doesn't incorporate revenge, rather one of solace. And I think that shipping her with one of the Gen 1 characters would be a good one, especially since it's like 15 years in the future. You know, she'd be in her late 20s. The Gen 1 characters would probably be like 30, 31. I think that Sammy would go really well with a character from Gen 1. Even if it's just a friendship that is explored. So
That's a good answer.
um,
No, I
yeah.
usually always write off Gen 3 when it comes to like thinking about how to use them in the future because I'm not a huge fan of the Pocket 2 cast, and I'm sure we'll get into that as we go to our rankings. But same
Oh,
Samey
our
is a highlight.
rankings are going to
Yeah,
be really interesting.
yeah, we'll see what they look like. But Samey is one of those where I see the appeal in her, but she's not one that I'm like necessarily dying to see again. Like the characters that have a relation to another character, like the Katie's and Sadie's, the Samey and Amy's, right? Those I always feel like I don't know how to feel about the characters that come into the show already having an established relationship. And that's only in the total drama sense. Like Big Brother, Survivor, all these real reality TV shows, I don't care, whatever. But for total drama, like I feel like it just really it usually hinders those characters, and we see it with both of those pairs specifically that they get like negative priority, right? They get uh they both are not really developed or fleshed out very well because they have to be tied to the other person in that pair. So I think it'd be interesting if we saw Sammy without Amy for sure. I think doing that would be interesting. We also saw it with Wayne and Raj, right, in the reboot seasons, always together. So I think it's one of those things where I would be I would be interested if Sammy was brought back, but I probably wouldn't flag her as someone that was watching, if that makes sense. We should probably call her Sammy. That's the most respectful thing to do. She's not a Sammy. She's Sammy.
Yeah. I don't think she ever outgrew that name, and I think that that's a testament to why I'd bring her back. Is I just feel
Fair
like
enough.
there's more
Yeah.
development to be had. But now I'm curious. Now that you've had time to stew and
Mm.
think about it, Cove, who would you bring back? You have so many people that you could bring back. You could even dive into Redonkulous Race. You got Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4, or Redonkulous Race. Who would you bring back, Cove, and why? And what would you do with them?
If I'm thinking about a reunion season where these guys are in their early 30s, and I'm assuming this is not the same as Adam's reunion where they're being forced to compete again. Like I'm assuming if this is in this universe, they're willingly participating in whatever reunion season this is. I'm gonna stick with Noah only because I would love to see what he evolves into as a 30-year-old man. Like I would love like he's got very much teen energy when we first meet him, like very sarcastic, snarky, like I'm better than you, that sort of attitude in Island, and then World Tour. You know, he comes down to earth a little bit, but he figures out Alejandro, right? So he's got the smarts. He also in Redonkulous Race got a romance. He got a relationship, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in our season rankings. But um, I think it'd be interesting to see if he's still together with Emma and you know what that looks like in his 30s, and also just how he would compete. Being a little bit more mature, like that sort of personality type, maturing a little bit, still having the smarts, having now 3 seasons under his belt, and he is a reality TV pro. That means he's been on multiple other shows. If we're to believe that him and Owen go on other shows together, so I feel like Noah would be someone that. Do I need him to win, or do I care about him winning? No, but I feel like it'd be just kind of interesting to see kind of what he would bring to the table, because I feel like he's one of those characters that has a natural um, development, like a natural story. That's he was very snarky and annoying in season 1. He got a little bit farther in season 3, did even better in Redonkulous Race. Got a girlfriend, grew up a little bit, matured. He was like what 19 in the Redonkulous race, and now he's going to be like 30 in this reunion season. So seeing that version of Noah, and if the snarkiness will come back in a competitive environment. As far as potential storylines, I feel like he needs a natural antagonist. Justin was a fun one, kind of like you said. Is what does Justin become in his 30s? I feel like Noah works best when he's got either somebody to bounce off of like an Owen or a natural foil, a natural antagonist like Justin or Alejandro. I don't really know exactly what I would look for in a storyline with Noah in a reunion season, but I think it would just be awesome to see him again. Carter Hayden's a great voice actor, so if he ever got around to voicing Noah again, I'd love to see that. But in this fun little exercise, I think Noah is someone that I would like to see because I feel like I could see myself in his evolution and his maturity, and I could see that development as well.
Well, I mean, it's a solid answer. Even though I was making fun of you for saying that Noah was your favorite last week, I do respect it. I really do. I uh I want to address something you just said, which is both of us grew up on this show. And it almost feels like some of these characters are real in a way.
Mhm.
Not like delusionally, but it's like growing up, we have these theories about what they would be as adults because when that show was airing, we were teenagers,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And so right now they would have aged with us. It's
Right.
kind of like Harry Potter, if you grew up on Harry Potter, um, when Harry Potter was an adult and you were an adult, you really felt the impact of that. And so I feel like with Total Drama Island, it has a very similar impact in my life where I'm like, where would these characters be right now? What kind of job would they be working? And what would they be doing with their life? Hopefully, as we continue to tread into the question of the day, it challenges us in those ways where we get to dive into these juicy theories about where we think that character would be, or our opinions on this season is, or our thoughts on this indie animated project is too, because it all stems back to where it all began, which was, we were kids with a dream and now we're adults with a dream. So
Deep.
it's just really cool where it's gone. Well, the next section that we're going to dive into is really the meat of the podcast itself, and that is the season rankings. Now, obviously, Total Drama as a series had such a great impact on not only our childhood, but in influencing us to go into cartoons. I went to college to become a dentist, right? And then I landed myself in the animation industry.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I kind of just was going through the motions. I became a personal trainer at one point. I was working at a gym, was trying to figure out what the psychology degree would be good for. But most of my time and energy and interest was always built around uh, these shows and writing for these shows specifically. After countless hours of PowerPoints and writing and convincing myself that it wasn't worth my time, I finally just decided to give it a shot, and here I am 2.5 years later. I didn't really think I would get here, but it's you never know where life's gonna take you. It's best to just hop on and enjoy the ride and kind of just let it flow however it's gonna go. So
Well, Total Drama had such a great influence on both of us that we both landed in animation, and it was heavily influenced by that series itself. But each season kind of played a different role in the different dispensations of my own life. Like there's the passing of an old era with the Gen 1 cast, but there's always going to be a sense of nostalgia and sentimental value when I see that cast. However, this new cast, the Gen 4 cast, they serve their own purpose, and I found myself really enjoying those seasons as well. And so I think it's worth diving into those different season rankings and kind of exploring your thoughts as well as my thoughts on what were the weakest seasons and why, what were the elements that made those seasons weak, as well as what the flip side of that is. What were the strongest seasons in our opinions, and why? What elements made those so strong? And we'll go from worst to best. Kicking us off, there are 9 seasons. So let's start off in ninth place. And
yeah,
and when we say worst, actually, before we dive into this,
sure.
sorry, I feel like I'm kind of trailing into different territory. This doesn't mean that this season is necessarily horrible or bad, because I do think that total drama as a concept is extremely strong. And even in the worst ranked seasons in our brackets, they still have strong elements. So with that, I'll turn the time over to you, Dan.
None of these, I gave a number and a letter ranking for each of these seasons, and none of them get an F because at the end of the day, I still love this show and I'm gonna watch it regardless. But anyway, as far as my number 9 goes, I told you before, but I can flip flop between 7, 8, and 9 all day long. All three of them kind of they're difficult for me to find the positives in. I'll put it that way. But I ended up settling in at number 9. Hakatu Island is my number 9.
Okay.
Yeah. And I if I gave it a letter grade, it would be a D. And the reason why Hakatu Island wound up being number 9 for me is because I can't name one character, more than one character, that I would actively enjoy seeing again, or that I actually enjoyed while watching. And mind you, this season came out when I was going into my junior year of high school, and so there's no nostalgia bias here. Like I am fully registering this as my least favorite season. I just felt like the characters were not very relatable. They were very one dimensional. We had a Snow White and we had a Honey Boo Boo. We had the guy, the villain from Austin Powers. Like we had all
We
these.
had Leonardo the LARPer.
Yeah, we had Leonard the LARPer.
Or
Like,
Leonard.
Yeah, fake fan alert. No. But yeah, I just thought also the plot lines are questionable at best. The only like quote unquote interesting ones were romantically related. Dave and Sky, or Jasmine and Sean, and even Dave and Sky was like Dave is one of the most polarizing characters I think in the whole series. So even that was like hard to watch. He became a very difficult character to watch. The challenges felt like kind of too over the top and unreasonable. Obviously, I get it because it was on a man-made island that was specifically designed for extreme things like this that they were doing. And the only genuinely interesting plotline that I thought that they had was with Scarlet, who was, quote unquote, the evil genius, surprise evil genius. But even then, I thought the execution was a little lackluster, and she went a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it kind of falls down to my number 9, and it flip flopped with my 8 and 9. Like those can flip flop even more than 7, 8, 9 can. It really came down to the fact that when I think about it, I don't personally find any enjoyment from the cast itself. Like the cast is very incohesive and not memorable for me, and the ways that they should be memorable. They might be memorable because they're very one note, and you can pretty much name all their stereotypes within 1 second. But they weren't memorable to me in a way that I would like to see them again, essentially. So that's what my number 9 is.
Well, the beauty of this series is that you can hop outside of the world and be entertained by a world that doesn't live by the boundaries that are constructed within our own world. So it allows our dreams to be bigger. You have characters who come into the game and they're okay with killing people. It's like Scarlet was that character. It was really intriguing to see her be a villain. And it was a cool reveal as well. But then as soon as she was like, I'm okay with killing everyone, like
Yeah,
it's not funny anymore.
I get it if you like the goofy characters, if you like the over the top stereotypes, like if you like having a Disney princess in total drama, do you? That's totally awesome. It's just not for me. I like, this is reality. I understand it's a parody of reality TV, but it's also like I would like to see realistic characters here, relatable characters here. That's a personal preference. I understand that that's definitely just I might be in the minority with that. I might be in the majority. I'm not entirely sure, but I know that for me, that's my specific preference, and I found it very difficult to get through the season just because of how little I felt like I was made to care for these characters. And yeah, to your point, like if these are cartoon characters, but if they're gonna be like all willy nilly, I'm ready to kill you, then like what are we doing? This is not reality TV anymore. This is just a straight up cartoon. So which is fine. Again, it's for kids. It just wasn't for me, and it's still not for me. So that season, number 9. Should I go on to number 8?
Great ranking.
Yeah? All right. No surprise, it's All Stars. I like I said, I could flip flop. I could flip flop these two all day. Ultimately, the reason why I let this one land at 8 instead of 9 is because I at least got to see some of the OGs and there were at least some very interesting and storylines out of them. I thought it might have been a little too soon to do an all-star season, but I understand the allure of it and why they would do that, especially if it was gonna be the last time they brought back the OG characters. But it was the catastrophic derailment of a majority of the characters, and I don't know what other word to use, but the dumbification of a lot of them to empower the main antagonist of the season uh, were severe drawbacks to me. If you have to make everybody, if you have to write everybody else's character down a peg in order to lift another character up, then you need to reevaluate. Essentially, I just felt like that was set up for failure that season,
Yeah.
and it was kind of hard to watch. It's salvageable. I think the elimination order is salvageable, but it's otherwise kind of catastrophic, to use another word. It's a I don't mind the first few boots. I don't mind Lindsay Lightning Joe. After that, it gets a little bit hazy. Also, the selections that they chose for All Stars were questionable. I don't know why we needed 7 and 7 when we had like 25 versus 13 in the generations. So not entirely sure why we needed 7 from both. Especially because Sierra and Alejandro only had one season. Yeah, I think there's the obvious of mishandling of Mike and his multiple personalities and whole reset button thing, which I personally don't find super offensive, but I also don't struggle with that, so I'm not entirely sure what that looks like because I mean it's a cartoon at the end of the day, but yeah, there's just a lot of interesting decisions made that felt like it lacked cohesion. It felt like there were maybe a bunch of different people that had different opinions on how the story should go, and it didn't really feel super cohesive. I think everybody knows Sunny Monday Sunday is infamously one of the worst rated episodes ever of Teledrama. Interesting season that I was harder on in the past, but I've lightened on a little bit, and by that I mean instead of ninth place, I put it at 8th place. So that's my it's another D for me. It's another D plus.
Well, that's a really interesting number 8, and I see where you're coming from with that one. It makes me wonder what was going on behind the scenes,
Yeah,
Like how involved was the studio that owned the rights to Total Drama? And like did they step in and say you have to do it this way? And that's why it just felt so clunky the entire time.
yeah.
But I totally agree with your take on that. I don't disagree with anything you said. And Sunny Monday Sunday, Sud,
Sunday,
su-
Sunday, muddy Sunday.
Sunny Monday
I don't
Sunday.
know.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Yeah,
That's a tough one to say. Sorry, what a tongue twister.
yeah.
Um, that's notorious for being the worst episode in the entire series, and it derailed a character who was already derailed,
Yeah.
and so and that's hard to do. You almost have to intentionally do it. So
Exactly.
it was just I agree with your take on that.
Awesome. All right, I'll move on to number 7. And if you're noticing now, if you're watching on the video version, that is all of a sudden much lighter on my screen. That's because I turned the lights on. So, anyway, my number 7 is a season that I could have probably put at 8 or 9, but I ultimately decided that it wasn't as bad as the other two, or as weak, I should say. And that is Reboot Season 2. So Total Drama Island 2024, whatever.
Okay,
Whatever the official name is of
that's
this season.
so low. Okay, but yeah, I'm following.
Yeah. Here's my rationale. Repeat antagonist was a bold move that
Yeah.
I did not think the execution came out very well because of the amount of and I don't use this word lightly. I know the community loves to use this word, but I'm very picky when I use this word, but I'm using it very intentionally here. Um, Lots of plot armor, very much adjacent to the mal of it all, of how much we need to change other people's actions in order to, or how things we need to do off screen to let this antagonist continue going forward. Um,
Yep.
I did not. I found that it takes me out of the experience when it's very noticeable when those things happen, like when Julia finds Damien's idol off screen, and then we're just led to like we just have to believe that she found it even though she's showed no inclination of knowing where it is, whatever. I don't know. I can't remember this season at this point, but
And the
yeah.
thing is, it would have made more sense if it was MK.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
MK should have taken the reins for that season's antagonist, and she is the kind of girl that would go out and try to steal someone's, like, immunity idol. Like that's totally a play she would do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I agree with you on the Julia front.
Yeah, I felt a little misattributed. Could have MK should have and could have gotten more of the focus that Julia was getting. Wayne winning was super unsatisfying. Talk about a character that had no relevance whatsoever the entire story, and all of a sudden he wins. And I get it as well. Like you're gonna have these kind of characters because it is realistic to have a character that's unsatisfying win or undeserving. Like it happens in these kind of shows. So if it was a parody on that, totally understand. I'm not gonna. I can see the value in it, and I can see why they might have chosen it. I also know that the writers love hockey, so there could have been a little bit bias there. But anyway, the point is that I felt like it was very unsatisfying. The challenges were also a little bit what's the word uninspired, I guess. And this was the first season that I felt like I already got tired of a cast. Like I do not want to see these people anymore. And I think that is
Really?
I think mostly comes
Okay.
down to I feel like they've exhausted the characters that got the most attention. I'm not interested in the characters that haven't received a lot of attention. And I'm older now, and I understand the show is for kids, and if it comes back, it's going to continue being for kids. And I think this was the season, given it's the last season that's aired, that really like solidified that thought for me. But I really truly felt like a lot of I'm gonna say post merge decisions, um, the elimination order, the challenges, the plot armor, the winner of it all. I thought it was pretty weak for a second season of this cast.
Okay, that's fascinating. It's a hot take. It's a hot take, but I respect it.
I don't
I
know if it
respect it.
is. I don't know if it is a hot take. I don't.
You might be in the majority. You
Yeah.
might be in the majority, but in my eyes,
Uh,
you might be
yeah.
surprised at how high that one is on my list.
I was expecting both of them to be higher than mine for sure. But I'll move on to number 6 for me. I feel like I've been a little bit negative on those 3 seasons as a whole. And just as a reminder, I could still watch them again. Like they're not like unwatchable to me. They're just I'm taken out of the enjoyment of it. But I could still watch it. Anyway,
Yeah.
all that to say, my number 6. We're moving up into the C tier. So this is still like not like super my favorite season, but I can see some positives in it, more so than these other 3. So number 6 for me is Revenge of the Island, and
Okay.
I could be convinced to put this lower. A lot of this ranking
Really?
it
Okay.
comes down to me not having a lick of a memory about this season. I do not remember much about it, and I felt like I couldn't put it any higher or lower because of that. There was a part of me that's always been bothered by the uneven cast too, which is so it doesn't matter, like it's so trivial, but I understand why they did 13 characters. It's because they had 25 in the first gen, if you include Alejandro Sierra and Blanley, so they needed 13 cast members for this season. But that always bothered me. I did not like the theme very much of the toxic waste. I don't like what they did to some of the characters through the toxic waste, namely Stacy and Dakota. I thought this had a lot of weak characters, but a lot of memorable characters as well. I think there are some standouts here, like Lightning Scott, Joe. I'll put Zoe in there. But to me, I do truly feel like the main characters from this cast were, in relation to the OG cast's main characters, less favorable. They were less likable overall. I'm talking Cameron, Mike, Zoe, like that core 3. I'm not a huge fan of those 3 characters. And so I think that put a little bit damper on this season for me as well. But that said, I think there is a lot of potential with a lot of these characters. So where I couldn't
Yep.
see that with Pakatu Island, I could see it a lot with this cast. I think every character, whether it's B, Sam, Dakota, Anne Maria, Dawn, Brick is underrated. Love Brick. Um,
Yep.
these characters, I could see them all doing well in a future season, which is great. I think they were a lot more inspired. I thought they were had a lot of charm to them, and so that is a positive I'll take away from this season. Is the cast wasn't inherently the problem. I think it was revisiting the island and the state that it was in, and taking such a I think most people can agree this is probably the drastic turn of Chris McLean as a character this season. Um,
Oh yeah, he was maniacal. He was
yes,
okay with people dying, and
yeah,
that was That was a
So
radical turn.
I don't have much else to say for this season, but I felt like this was a start of buying more into the cartoonish aspect of the series. And I mean, totally fine with that. Like again, like this is for kids. This is a cartoon. If that's how you want to run their show, like I'm not gonna fight that. But I found myself a little bit like this is not the total drama island I knew, sort of feeling. But yeah, so it comes in at number 6.
It's a fair ranking. I've seen a lot of recent love for some of the characters in Gen 2, and there's a part of me that kind of thinks when you've been handed, I guess, less food than you normally are, you're gonna be like, "Oh, well, like, what the heck?" You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
then you get less food, you're gonna appreciate the other serving, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I kinda think as soon as we got Pacateo Island, we started to think, "Oh, Gen 2 might not be as bad as we thought they
It's a
were."
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
which is really sad that we have to hit those kind of phases where it's like,
Yep.
"Okay, it's only gotten worse, therefore we appreciate the bad." Which doesn't mean that it's horrible. It's just like I've seen a lot of love for B recently,
Mm.
and I actually see where people are coming from. I think B does have a lot of potential, but at the same time, he was such a one-note character.
Yep.
And so you could explore him a little bit more, but there are other characters I would put in front of him, especially from the Gen 1 and Gen 4 casts for me.
Hmm.
Um, but but I will say I think that we're in this strange position where we appreciate Gen 2 much more than we typically would just because
What came after?
Gen
Yeah.
3 was kind of a flop.
I could see that.
And
Yeah,
so
I might fall victim to that too, to be honest. I think when that generation is sandwiched in between 1 and 3, it's obviously nowhere near 1, but it's also nowhere near as bad as 3. So it's like it really just falls into that middle generation where it's like not as bad as what comes after, but not as good as what came before. So it just kind of that's why it lands number 6, which is like almost halfway in this ranking for me.
and there were so many personalities they could have explored. A lot of different
Yeah.
stereotypes that they could have overplayed a little bit. And it felt like they ran out of ideas when they hit Gen 3. But again, I don't know what happened behind closed doors. I don't know what the studio was telling them to do. So,
Right.
but I understand where you're coming from. I see why Revenge of the Island is ranked at, you said five,
Number
four,
6.
five, six. Dang, that is low.
Yeah.
but but still, I understand. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I
I'll
totally
jump
do.
I'll jump right into number 5, which this one might be I think we'll have a difference of opinion on this just knowing you. My number 5 is action. It is
Okay.
a B minus C plus for me. It's teetering on that border. I never know where to actually put it, but it is the actual middle point of this tier ranking. And I have such a weird relationship with action because like I shared, it was the first memory I had of this show. Is Harold in a Final Five confessional during the karate challenge or whatever it was. I remember it vividly, and so there was
That's where you
probably
started.
yeah, just probably
Yeah.
a little bit of bias in that for that, but um, it's also strangely to me a very rewatchable season. Like despite the pacing being pretty slow. Too many non-eliminations, too many returnees that I would like to see anyway. Personally, it for me there is I think it's the last chill season that we've got, and I think I like that aspect. Like, and we'll talk about it when I get to Island. But one of the things I love about Island is just how laid back and chill it is, how grounded it is, and I feel like Action might be the second most grounded of the seasons that we've gotten, and so I feel like that aspect is what draws me back time and every now and then to want to like put on a few episodes of Action, which I have done. Like as recently as last year, I tried to get my wife to watch Total Drama, and we made a few episodes into Action, and then kind of just fell off. But um, I thought the film lot was a fun environment. I thought it made for a lot of memorable challenges. There were a lot of memorable for better or for worse storylines of the season. I think we all know what happened with Trent and Jeff and Bridget and Courtney and everything this season, but um, and we don't talk about the winner of this season at all. We don't mention her name, but I think all things considered, it's a season that I look back on with a lot of I want to say with some positivity, but also knowing, I credit you to opening my eyes for this to this. There was a lot of potential that the season had that went to waste. I can also see that version of it. So that's why it lands right in the middle for me because I'm okay with it. I think it's salvageable with a few different tweaks. I think it's far from the worst season, but I also know that it maybe fails as a sequel season. It maybe fails as a way to keep people interested in the the series long term. I could see that as well. So it lands right in the middle for me. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else to say about it.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a good place to put it. It's definitely a good place to put it. I wouldn't say that it like fails for its audience. I think it
Mhm.
just fails.
It's characters. Number 4 is reboot season 1, and we are safely in the B tier now. So
Oh, dang. Okay.
so
Okay.
it's number 4 for me. I thought this was a very fun return to total drama. I thought this was, for all intents and purposes, they nailed the modern tropes. I think they had a lot of fun playing into those. There were a few episodes and a few challenges that I didn't particularly care for, that were past my threshold of realism that I would have liked to see. But um, like the T-Rex challenge, for example, like what was that about anyway? But overall, for our first new season in like what 8 years, I think they did a lot of things well. I think it was a great returning season. I thought the cast is memorable. There are a lot of standouts. I don't think there was a lot of things that I could really point to that were bad inherently. I think the finale was interesting. I think that might have been one of the weaker parts of the season is the finale. The racing in lava, like that's again one of those things where I'm just like, but I digress. I think the one thing that I'll probably point out is that it felt like it felt like I was watching a modern total drama. It didn't feel like it had the same charm as the OG total drama, which is fine. Like, and I don't think that was the point. I think the point was to bring in a new audience, and to revitalize this into the modern age, with modern stereotypes and with modern characters and with modern storylines. With Julia being the influencer, right, and all those things. First openly gay character, all these things that are truly bringing us into this century. Um, but I genuinely appreciated the attempt for more engaging and intentional strategy as well. I thought that was one of the strengths of this season, and I felt like there was more of a homage to Survivor and more references and inspiration directly from Survivor as well, that you
I
could
agree.
point to. So I thought it was a step up in that regard. So not my favorite season for sure, but for coming back to the show when I'm in my mid to late 20s and it's the first season in what, like 8 years or something, I don't even know. It it could have been worse. I think it was actually pretty decent. So that's why I have it in my B tier. It's like it's good. It's solid. It's a good season. I would recommend this season to somebody. But not my favorite.
Fair. Fair. I love it. Your list is pretty solid so far. Big
Thank you.
fan. And
Okay.
and your top 3, they're great. Goated seasons.
I don't think many people disagree with this top three. Like I'm not making a hot take. I'm not like I don't think I'm in the minority here. I think the order for everybody might switch, but the top three are I think universally most people's top three. Number three, the first A tier season, Redonkulous Race. I have notes as number three. I think it was. I think what you'll notice with my top four rankings here, 3 out of the 4 seasons are the first season, if you will. So reboot was the first season out in 8 years, right? It's essentially Toll Drum Island Part Two. It's like the new modern series. The first season. Um, Redonkulous Race is the first season in a spinoff. and obviously Island's in my top 2 now that you know. Duh. So that's the first season of the show. So I feel like what Total Drama does well is establishing that first cast in that first season, and they do a really good job with that kind of with that kind of vibe. They do a good job, and so I thought the Redonkulous race was, while the pacing was probably one of the pacing in the early boots are probably two of the weaker points overall of the show. The characters were memorable. There were great, entertaining, and engaging plot lines. The characters were relatable overall. We did not need Leonard back, but that's cool that he was there.
I love that he was
Yeah,
the first boo.
I know. It's so funny.
That was the
Yeah,
best part of his character.
yeah. I thought that this was probably, I said that action was probably one of the most grounded seasons after Island. I think Redonkulous Race could challenge that. I think it was pretty tame for a total drama season as far as challenges and storylines go. Plenty of strategy. It was really interesting to see them with, what is it, 32 characters and 16 pairs, and how they chose to attempt that. I thought it was really cool. It really opened up the universe for what this show could be, and essentially is honestly Redonkulous Race was a big inspiration for me. Before I even made Reality Resort, I kind of wanted to do another Redonkulous Race esque season in my PowerPoint style before I ultimately ended up going forward with Reality Resort and this animation. But yeah, I just thought Redonkulous Race, that came out when I was, I think, a junior or senior. When I forget when it came out. I think it was a senior in high school when that came out. And I like blogged about it like when every episode that came out. I was super into it, and I think they did a great job. Obviously, there might be a little bit biased because Noah, one of my favorite characters, did really well. But you also, I also knew he was partnered with Owen. Owen's a previous winner. There's no way they're gonna
Noah's
win.
in all of your top 3 seasons, by the
I know. Not.
way.
It's definitely a little bit of bias, but also
I
not.
I wonder if there's a
Yeah.
correlation here.
Well, we'll see. But I actually, to disprove this theory, I actually was not a fan at first of Noah getting a romantic arc. I did not really, I was not on board with that. I thought that was kind of the antithesis to what his character was or should have been. But I'm not the writer, so I don't care. And I ended up liking the relationship anyway. But um, yeah, I really liked Redonkulous Race. A tier, easy, number 3. All right, on number 2, A plus tier. And I've softened. I've actually flip flopped number 1 and 2 as much as I flip flopped 8 and 9. But I think over the last year or two, solidified my number 1 and 2 in this order. For reasons I'll get into. But so number 2 is World Tour. I give it an A plus. I think it is one of the strongest written seasons of the entire show. I think everybody has their gripes with how Team Victory was handled. And I, for one, was never bothered by it. Those were characters that I was the least interested in anyway. Now, do I think that some of them were a little bit derailed? Maybe. But I think because of how well Alejandro was handled and written, I think a lot of us, including myself, I'll just speak for myself actually. I don't want to include anybody else. I was able to like turn a blind eye and be like, he's a great character, and I don't really care that he kind of screwed over these characters. Even if a lot of people want to see it as plot armor, I think it was written justifiably in the show. I don't think it ever came across as we need Alejandro to advance, so here's how we're going to screw people over. It felt natural to his character, that they established in the action special. So Celebrity Manhunt, right? I think that's what it's called. So I
Yep.
thought that World Tour was probably the strongest finale that we had. I love musicals. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a big musical guy. We had our last episode of Resort, episode 11, was a musical episode. I had a musical episode in every one of my PowerPoint seasons. So I love musicals. So I thought the numbers were really fun. Yeah, I thought it was a memorable, easily rewatchable season. Um, a little bit. I think towards the end we kind of lost the plot a little bit as far as realism goes, and that's again just a me thing. That's not like a thing that I think makes an objectively good cartoon. That is a me thing that I like to look for in my shows. So for me, that was like one of the only downsides is Alejandro gets toppled by lava and then thrown into a Star Wars robot suit, whatever. So that was interesting, but overall, it had the best
I
it had the best entertainment and drama of any season. So
I kind of love the Alejandro inside the robot thing. I
It was
think.
fun. It was a fun reference. Definitely a fun reference. But the poor dude. So clearly
Yeah, yeah.
that leaves my number one as Island. In the S tier, all alone. Heavily nostalgia biased, I think. I'm just gonna put that out there. I think that plays into it a little bit. Um,
Maybe, maybe.
I think I just going back to what I said earlier about them doing the first seasons or the first season of a new genre or new era. I mean, they do it so well, and I think this was the perfect. I think it really captured like the essence of what they were looking for. This was a summer camp parody of Survivor with teenagers, and they just like nailed it from episode 1 to episode 26, episode 27 if you want to include that silly special. Total drama, 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 drama island. I think it set the standard for everything to come, and it really there was nothing to compare it to, like action. Everything that precedes Island is automatically compared to it, and I think it's easily rewatchable. It's generally well paced. There's only like what 2 or 3 non-eliminations the entire show, and it had a 22 main character cast, which is crazy. 24 if you include Chris and Chef, 25 if you include Mr. Coconut. So crazy. I think, like I
Don't forget
said,
the 25th most
it,
important
you
character.
can't. You
Yeah.
cannot forget Mr. Coconut. But like I
No,
said
no,
earlier, I
yeah.
think it is the most grounded and relatable season. All of the storylines were things that you could imagine happening at a teen summer camp or just in high school. Like these are characters that you could see yourself going to high school with. They were very memorable. Everybody loves the OG cast. The reason why Reunion blew up is because everybody wants to see these characters again. Like nobody wants these characters to go. I think it's such an interesting thing that they did, which was carrying over these characters into each subsequent season instead of starting over with a new cast every season like Survivor, Big Brother, etc. All the reality TV shows do. So I thought that was such an interesting choice, and it kind of just like really made us fall in love with these characters more and more. And it's all because of Island and how they were introduced to us. I could go on, but I think it's really hard to rank this season as anything lower than one, even in spite of all the flaws. I will say again, the second instance in which there was plot armor was Heather basically the entire merge. She had no business surviving so many of these eliminations, but there was nothing, again, A, nothing to compare it to, and B, I didn't care because like we wanted to see Heather keep going forward to stir drama and chaos, and then eventually get her karma in the final three. Like it didn't hinder my enjoyment of the show by watching Heather earn immunity by finding a random basket and just praying that no one was going to vote her out if she didn't get immunity, or somehow getting votes to get Justin out instead of her. Like all these random things. Cody getting mauled by a bear, right? All these things that should have sent her home, but saved her. Convenient by the plot, but ultimately didn't matter. It didn't take away my enjoyment of the show, and so easily rewatchable. Super. It might be a little bit dated. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't watched it. I haven't rewatched it recently, but I think it holds up super well. Otherwise, if it didn't hit it out of the park as much as it did, we wouldn't be here right now. Like there wouldn't be 8 more seasons of this show if it weren't for how well they handled this first season.
Oh, it's a great placement for that one. I think Heather is one of those characters who genuinely deserved the karma she got. Actually, I don't think anybody deserves karma, to be 100% honest. Like, I don't think we should ever hope that on anyone, even a villain. But um
Yeah, she got her hair
Heather
shaved
was
off.
one of those ones where it was like, yeah, yeah, it's
That's
like, and that's gonna grow back. It's not a
yeah.
permanent
It's not
alteration.
Alejandro getting
Um,
toppled by lava and being put in a robot suit, right? Like
yeah.
it's super it's grounded. Everything was so grounded in reality, which I personally really enjoyed. I love the laid back summer camp vibe. So,
Yeah, and I felt like in those first 3 seasons, they just kept upping the stakes of the karma for the villain.
yeah.
Like, for Heather, shaved her head. Totally fine. Season 2, Justin. I mean, the man
Broke
fell
his arm.
from
Yeah.
he broke
Yeah.
everything. He walked away in a cast
Yeah.
only to get rejected by the girl that he sacrificed his game for. Um, and then Alejandro, who was thrown into a lava pit and basically turned into the total drama equivalence of Darth Vader. It was it was interesting to see that progression of karma hit the villains
Yeah.
because I also felt like it was unwarranted. But in Total Drama Island, I felt like that buildup of Heather's entire story was great because it was coming to a head, and we
Mhm.
got to see her explore the insecurity of being bald in Total Drama, 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 Drama Island,
Mhm.
and I think that that was a very great conclusion for her character. I just wish in season 2 that she would have learned something from that. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
so weird because it was like in order to make her a hero, you had to introduce a bigger and badder villain in season 3, which I just don't think was necessary if she was handled well in season 2. But I think season 1 being the top spot, that's a cool placement. And I think most people would agree with your rankings. So,
I don't yeah, I don't
maybe
have
there's
very I'm a very vanilla person when it comes to my takes. So I don't think anybody really would really disagree super much. That's not even really a phrase. No one's gonna agree that much with with these. I don't think. I'm not stirring the pot. With these takes, I'm very much probably aligned with 90% of the community with most of these. I guess reboot season 2 is my outlier. I don't know. Maybe that's what you made me think, but we'll see.
Well, if you're vanilla, then I'm sherbert because I'm about to commit a serious cardinal sin
Oh no,
in this community with my rankings because I think a lot of people are going to be up in arms about my opinions. But I have reasons behind them,
ready. I'm
and I
ready.
do think through things very carefully. Again, each one of these seasons, I would say 8 out of the 9 of them I could rewatch. There's one season that I really just can't watch. I just can't stand it. And it's really just I'm probably the only one that I know that just really that season bothers me.
I think I know what it
Um,
is.
and s- and I think you probably do know what it is. I think that once you change the tone, rewrite the characters, and you take away the chill factor of the show, I don't know, that just kind of harshens my mellow, man. So for me, the ninth place in last place, and I am bold enough to say this, is total drama action.
I
I
knew
am
it.
putting it there and I am proud to put it there. And I'll tell you why.
It's so
This
real.
is the biggest offender of making likable characters unlikable.
Mm.
And let me just put this into perspective really quick because I am extremely passionate about this being the worst season that they have ever made. And okay, that was mean, but I think that like there have been complete character derailments for Trent, Gwen, Jeff, Bridget, DJ, Owen, Chef, and Courtney. That's half of the cast
Yeah.
were completely derailed. Some of them received like redemption in future seasons. You could make an argument that Gwen, we saw a lot more of her. We got to spend more time with her. Therefore, we got some redemption there. I would beg to differ, to be 100% honest. I don't think Gwen ever got her redemption. Even though we got more screen time, it does not equate to redemption. And
100%.
so I'm very passionate about action being the pivotal point when Total Drama took kind of a nosedive. But I do think that Total Drama recovered. And there's a part of me that speculates it was studio involvement. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I will say that Jeff, Chef, and Owen were eventually redeemed, but the others kind of faded. So like Jeff, he won Redonkulous Race. I love that. I am sad that he won Redonkulous Race because I'd rather have him win a different season. I'd rather have him come back. Like he would have been a very satisfying winner for a returnee season. But now we'll never see that because he won Redonkulous Race. Um, Owen, we got a lot more screen time with Owen, and Owen has always been consistently himself. If you liked Owen in Island, you're gonna like him in all the other seasons. You're gonna love him in Redonkulous Race. You're gonna love him in World Tour. So he got redemption. Chef, yeah, he got some redemption. And I love him in future seasons, but then I feel like he's not the same chef in the newer seasons that we fell in love with. And so I would love to see a return to form for Chef, but we'll get into that a little bit more. I feel like Gwen and Courtney, it almost felt like they were trying to redeem those two. Like they tried to continuously bring them back together, you know? Like they really wanted to create that hard line and world tour, but then I just felt like it never really was resolved. Um, and a part of it was Courtney's writing, but I feel like both of them really never got the redemption that they deserved, and action just completely derailed them to where they needed a lot of redemption. And I feel that way about Trent and Bridget and DJ as well. I just feel like we just didn't get any time with them to redeem those characters at all. And so I had a problem with that because we had a lot of character development with, or I shouldn't even say character development. We had a lot of screen time with Gwen and Courtney in the future, but it was it was an obnoxious amount of focus. And I felt like nothing got resolved. And it all started with action. And so I guess I just have never, and I started with Island. And so like I wanted action to succeed. Like if action had implemented small changes here and there, it would have been in my top 3. There are things that they could have done with action that would have made action completely, it could have even topped Island in my opinion. Um the way it was built up, the cast that they had was perfect. I just felt like how they utilized that cast, and this is where I think studio involvement really came into play. I felt like there was just a lot of dead end writing, um, and what I mean by dead end writing is I felt like they didn't really know where they wanted to go with certain characters, so they just wrote them off, and that made me really sad. Something else I had a serious issue with is the hypocrisy of the writing,
Mm.
where Chef is reprimanded for rigging the game with DJ, but then it's okay that production brings back Owen to rig the game. Like,
Mm.
what? Like that is hypocrisy writing. That's like there's no intelligence with that type of writing. And so it just felt like there was really no moral to the story. I didn't feel like the finale was a good win in the end. I didn't feel satisfied with that finale. It was almost a slap to my face. I was almost genuinely offended with this season. Um, and so this is the only season. That's a hot take, and I'm gonna get so much flack for it. I bet you Fresh TV might blacklist me for that, and I apologize, guys. I genuinely wanted to love that season, but that season I get a little bit angry with
Yeah,
that
you get worked
season
up.
where I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, that season
I
had
knew it was
so much
coming.
potential.
I knew it was your
Yeah.
I knew it was your number 9. But every time you talk about it, you convince me. Like I feel like I should be putting it lower, but my personal biases come into play where I can't. I don't think I can put it any lower than what I can. But you always
You
convince
started
me.
with it.
Yeah, yeah. You exactly,
Yeah.
and you convince me all the time that like, yeah, it really is not the greatest season. And you make all the good points there, and we've talked about this off screen or off camera. Um, but I truly do feel like, to your point about the studio involvement, that when they made Total Drama Island, right? They didn't know if they were going to get greenlit for another season, and so they made it as if it could be a whole series in that one season. Like you got everything you wanted from Total Drama Island. I think that's why it's hands down for me the best season, because of that as well. I think it's a big factor.
Yeah.
And then when they were greenlit for season 2, and I'm assuming season 3 was involved in that. I'm not going to say that's 100% confirmed. But now all of a sudden they have to think of new things to do with these characters that they weren't already planning long term for. So, for me, like, I'm not saying that I'm better than them, but I like to think of casts. What can I do with them for 2 or 3 seasons, right? And that, again, that's not me trying to come across as if I'm any better than them or that I have superior writing skills. But I can only imagine that when they were creating Island, they did not map out a 2 or 3 season plan for a lot of these characters. And I think you see that in action, to your point, where a lot of these characters are exactly what you said. I don't know what to do with them, so I'm just gonna write them out here, and hopefully people don't care or forget about it. There was no game plan. It felt like, and I think you're right. That action really started that, or showed that, and you can see it more throughout the series. But um, yeah, I think that is a detriment to the season, is the way that they handled some of these characters that could have otherwise had better showings. So I see
Yeah.
why it's number 9. I'm not fighting it, to be honest. So
No, no worries. I love Monster Cash. That's an episode I could rewatch anytime. It had kind of an Ed and Eddie feel to it
sure.
in some ways, and I loved how it started. But I remember being a kid watching that episode and having such high hopes. And then I took to the internet. I was going to eBay to look up some toy that I was obsessed with as a kid, which was called UB Funkies. I loved that. And I came across this website that had a spoiler for like the first 5 eliminations for Total Drama Action, and I couldn't resist clicking on it. And you wouldn't believe how devastated I
Mm,
was, because I had, there's a period of time between Total Drama, 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 Drama Island and Total Drama Action. And in that time, I was so excited to see Trent again. I was so excited to see Jeff again. Jeff made me feel safe as a kid.
mm,
He, like, not only did I relate to Jeff and Trent, but also I just felt like Jeff had this optimistic levity to his character that just brought so much peace into my life. And as soon as I saw that Jeff and Bridget were the first ones eliminated, I was like, I was complete. I didn't want to scroll down more, so I scrolled down a little bit more and I saw that it was Izzy, and I was like, okay, I don't really care. But then I saw it was Trent, and I was like, why would I watch this season at this point? Like, Jeff and Trent were like the two biggest reasons that I was interested in this season, and they, like, and so I was sad, but I was also like, I was still locked in. I was like, hey, look, maybe they handle them well. Maybe they're just shocking eliminations. And that's cool, because when you have competent characters who are shocking eliminations, it gives precedent to give more time to other characters so that you can like them. But that didn't happen for me.
mm.
Instead, they made Trent crazy. And so they derailed him hard. Like I still don't understand that concept of Trent's story development. It really ruined it for me. And then with Jeff and Bridget, it's like Bridget was never that kind of gal until Total Drama, 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 Drama Island. And I guess you could say the resort episode of Total Drama Island. So, I mean, you could make an argument there, but like, typically that phase in a relationship fades pretty fast, you know? And so I just feel like when Total Drama Action hit, those two characters, Jeff and Bridget, wouldn't have been making out 24/7. I feel like they would have been playing the game a little bit more. Um, and they had a lot of potential, and it was really sad. And so for me, next, I was like, all right, I guess I just have to get attached to my third favorite in Total Drama Action, which is Justin. Uh, I was Justin was a wild card. I didn't see much from him, but I was like, I don't really care about the others. I've seen what they have to offer, and to be quite honest, I just don't relate to it. And so I clicked with Justin, and it looked like he was going to be the main antagonist, and then it was like, oh no, we have a returnee, and oh yeah, she's just going to replace Justin, and it was almost disrespectful. It was like they spat in his face, and I was just like, gosh, I just feel like there were a lot of missed opportunities with Action. I will say every other season after this, I can watch and I won't get frustrated. I can watch, and I can be chill, and I love them. I can just love the other seasons after this. Um, I mean, the eighth one kind of treads into territory where it's very disappointing. But I will say, my number 9 slot for Total Drama Action,
Locked in.
I have no regrets putting that there. Like,
Yeah.
I think that Action is overrated, and I think the elimination order is the worst elimination order we've seen in
Could
any
buy that.
season.
I could buy that.
Uh
Yeah.
so yeah. Ignore my passion. If you have a differing opinion, it's totally welcome. And also, for those of you who are watching this video, if you love Total Drama Action, if that means something to you, I respect that. I want you to know that. Like, I don't want to stomp on this thing that means so much to you, because different seasons speak to different people because they hit people at different times.
Yeah.
Um, and so you might find yourself really loving Action because you love Harold. And I Harold should have been in the finale in the original rewrite, but okay. Well, Harold shouldn't have been in the finale in the original rewrite, but with what they were doing, he should have been. And so, but I can see how some people find appeal with Action, especially people who love Duncan. And I like Duncan. I do. I just felt like we got enough of him in Island to where it was like I was just excited to see some of the other characters grow. And I just feel like we didn't get that. And I think that that set the precedent for us to dive into the wackiness of this universe, which I feel like strayed away from its original like world building, which was that this was a reality television show with the goofiness of the cartoon influence.
Hmm.
Like they are jumping, one leg on one step of a bridge and one leg on another, jumping back and forth while alligators are trying to bite at them in Island. It's like that. Yeah, that's like the cartoon stuff that is enjoyable that you could insert into this universe that is believable. But then as soon as you're like, well, this guy just fell from 200 feet in the air. And he landed on his crotch. Like, that guy's not going to survive. And that was Trent, by the way. Um, and so I guess you could make the argument that, he also fell from a plane in Total Drama Island. But I felt like with Action, we started to stray into territory that was a lot more unbelievable. And I think if we didn't have Action, we probably wouldn't have had Pakatu. Like, we wouldn't have had the radioactive island throwaway season. And so I feel like Action is really where it all went wrong. And it's the one season that I am the most passionate about that just needs to be changed. So I probably won't rant about the other seasons as much.
Just to fact check you, Pakatu is not the radioactive season. That's Revenge. Pakatu is the robotic island season.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Get wrecked. Get
whatever.
wrecked.
That just shows how
Yeah.
forgettable Pakatu was. My number 8 is All Stars.
All right,
and I know yours was that low too. Yeah. Wait, is yours 8 as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. With All Stars, it just felt rushed. I felt like they ruined beloved characters and they produced some of the worst challenges too. Like with Action, at least the challenges were interesting. Still feel like there were some missed opportunities with some challenges. Why didn't we have a zombie episode? But with All Stars, sorry, if I get on Action, I could just keep ranting. I could keep going. But with All Stars, I felt like Sunny Muddy Sunday is a perfect encapsulation of the type of challenge that we got.
Yeah.
And I don't think I need to add more to express the gravity of just the fact that we just didn't get good challenges at all in that season. The cross-season relationships, I felt like were forced as well and didn't organically mesh. I think that there's an exception to that. I actually thought that the Duncan Mal storyline was interesting. That's a hot take.
It went nowhere,
but the fact that Duncan, it didn't really go anywhere. Yeah, and that's the biggest heartbreak of that situation was I felt like there was a lot of potential there that was not explored. I just really didn't care for the main trio from Gen 2. Cameron, Mike, and Zoe.
Me neither.
I really want to like Mike. And there's parts of me that does like Mike a lot, but then there's parts of me that's like I don't know.
I don't know who he is.
If I even want, like, I don't know who he is. Yeah, I'm just so confused with this character. But with Zoe, she was such a one-note character. Like, can you name me anything about Zoe beyond her being nice? Can you name anything about Cameron beyond him being a bubble boy genius? We didn't learn anything else about those characters in a season where the final two had two of the three of them there.
Mm.
And I was like, what? And I saw that final two coming from a mile away. I did like I just
We
I
knew.
just did the math in
Yeah,
my
we knew.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before the season hit, I was like, well, why wasn't Zoe in the finale of Revenge of the Island? Probably because she's going to be in the finale of Island or of All Stars. Sorry. Probably because she was supposed to be in the finale of All Stars. Um, Now, who would be in the finale against her? Well, typically we have a guy versus girl finale. Revenge of the Island is an exception to that. So I'm going to play by those rules. Okay, well, in Gen 1, we have Alejandro and Duncan. Okay, so we can rule them out because both of them have been in the finale. So who does that leave us with? Well, let's rule out Cameron because he's also been in a finale. Okay, well, that limits us on who's going to be in the finale with her. And it seems like Mike is going to have a big story. So Mike versus Zoe. And I was right. Um, And just because something's predictable doesn't mean it's bad, but I will say I think that there was a lot of missed opportunity, specifically in the casting of the season.
100%.
Like, we had an all-star season, we didn't even have the face of the contestants in that season, which was Owen.
Mm.
Um, Totally surprising to me, and there weren't any relationships that were interesting to explore. Like, what was the dichotomy in All Stars other than Courtney and Scott? Like, that was the only interesting dichotomy that I felt like we explored, and even that was burdensome after a while because it felt like, oh, well, Courtney's back to her old ways, but Scott is, you know, weaker than he was in the last season. And so it's like, why? I just felt like a lot of people were nerfed in All Stars, and it made me sad. And also, the Courtney and Gwen side plot was so forgettable and just
Rushed.
frustrating.
Yeah.
So,
Let
yeah.
me ask you, because in my opinion, I think the cast is salvageable if you just swap Owen with Sam. And I even just thought of maybe swapping Lashana with Sierra, and that's probably all you need to do. But what's your what would you say is the way to fix the cast of All Stars?
Yeah, I mean, they're okay with having uneven cast seasons. Just throw Owen in there, swap Sam with Brick. I'd be okay with swapping Sierra with Lashana. Why is Sierra even there? I felt like
Just
Sierra,
repeated
the
the
only
same thing.
reason. Yeah, the only reason they brought her back was because she was one of two new contestants in World Tour, and so it felt like we were diving into three seasons all at once: Island, World Tour, and Revenge of the Island. I could still order myself a Subway, sit down, watch All Stars, and have a good time. Okay,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
you might need to coax me with food to stay seated, but still, I I can enjoy All Stars. Can't say the same about Action. Number 7. Number 7, I have Pakatu Island. I don't hate Pakatu as much as most people do. I think there were several good moments with some intriguing characters, but more than half of the cast was disposable and unrelatable. And that was my big problem with it. The scenario was also just insane. And I think we started seeing this divergence since Action. It got a lot more radical when we hit Revenge of the Island, but we went above subverting expectations into a reality that is just so unbelievable that it took me out of the story. Which, I mean, it's like I'm watching this show because it's a reality TV show in
Mhm.
the format of a cartoon, which is exactly what I felt like this show should be. So that's why I have Pakatu Island that low. I will say for me, I know for you, you're like, okay, maybe there's one character I like, but beyond that, the rest of the cast is not that great. For me, it's like I like Topher. I like Sean. I like Sammy. There's a part of me that even kind of enjoys Amy, which is the spiciest take in the community because she's like the most hated character
Yep.
ever. But it's like I think that the dichotomy between Sammy and Amy was interesting. I just wish that there would have been more redemption for Sammy. I also kind of enjoyed Sky. Um, I didn't like that Sky led Dave on. It's like even in one of her confessions, she was kind of like anxious and excited about the prospect of Dave liking her, but she has a boyfriend? Like that was a little iffy. Um, Sugar was gross. Sugar was
He
disgusting.
was a character.
Um, but I could see them bringing her back, and I would be okay with it. Um, I a lot of people love Jasmine. I thought Jasmine was actually boring,
I agree.
personally. I like the sentimental moments between Jasmine and Sammy, but beyond that, I couldn't care for Jasmine. So
If it
that's
Yeah, if it goes to show you how much I liked Pocket Island, my favorite character was Max. So there you go.
interesting. The Dexter's laboratory of total drama.
I just thought he was funny in a way that he provided comedic relief for me in an otherwise hard season for me to watch. So that's why I liked Max. Yeah.
He went so far, I actually thought he might have been prepped to win the season.
Nah, no way.
And I would have been okay with him winning. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe. I doubt it, but
Definitely
maybe.
not. He
Yeah,
was
you'd have
unfairly
to
booted
really
off, by the way.
refine. He was. Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that statement. 100%. Number 6 for me, and there's a okay, so like my number 9 to number 8, there is a wide margin there. All right. So my 8 and 7, they're pretty close to each other. But then my 7 to 6, there's another wide gap between,
Hmm.
how distant they are. And so my number 6 is Revenge of the Island.
I think that's where I had
Um,
it, right?
yep.
I think we're in the same realm here. All right, good. Let me hear it.
We've got some similar
Yeah.
rankings, just a couple things mixed around here and
Mhm.
there. I felt like Revenge of the Island, to keep this one short and brief, some decent characters, a stray away from the boundaries of the universe, bad marketing, and weak challenges. That's just how I feel about Revenge of the Island. But there were some characters that I liked. I love Brick. I want Brick to come back.
Rick's so good.
Gosh dang it. Like,
He's so underrated.
he should have been an All Stars. And he should have won All Stars. Well,
Ooh,
no, he shouldn't have. But
that's a spicy take.
but he should have been in. Yeah.
I would have liked him in over Sam for sure.
Yeah. I could have seen him go Final Four.
Depends, yeah.
I think he's a good character, but I actually don't think that that's a character that should win a season. Now that I think of it,
I just don't know who he would have interacted with in that season outside of Joe and Lightning, and they were early boots. So, like, what is he gonna do?
yeah, that's a tough one.
I mean, obviously anyone can interact with anybody, but when you look at like on paper the cast for that season, it's really hard to see where he would naturally integrate with. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
He would have just and maybe this is why they didn't include him because he would have just resorted to hanging out with
Joe and
the
Lightning,
Gen 2
yeah.
trio. Yeah. And then he would have had a rivalry with Joe. Um, but yeah, if we had more characters in All Stars and different characters, we could have explored some interesting interactions, but
The other way to salvage All Stars is to make it 26 episodes and not have to do Pocket 2 Island. So there's that alternative universe. But
it's an all-star season, go big or go home. My number 5, and this is where I think you'll see a massive stray between our rankings.
mhm,
My number 5 is World
I
Tour.
had a feeling. All
Um,
right, explain yourself.
Where were you on Tuesday at 7 p.m.? I think that World Tour had some great moments. It had a fun spin with inserting songs, decent challenges, and I think there is a big gap between Revenge of the Island and World Tour. I think World Tour is where you start to see my top 5. It's like these are 5 that I enjoy. Like I can rewatch these 5 and I don't really have a lot of gripes about them. Um, However, I will say with World Tour, I think Sierra was unnecessary. I also think that another hot take, I might get banished from this community with these hot takes, but I think Alejandro was unnecessary as
Mm,
well. If Justin was written well, Justin
I don't
like Ale
disagree.
we wouldn't have needed Alejandro if Justin was written well.
I don't disagree with that
I
at
feel
all.
like and yeah, like Alejandro, what did he do other than kind of just take the personalities of Noah and Justin and then mix them together? You know what I mean? That's just what his character was. And so I feel like Justin could have filled that role a little bit more. We saw hints of it in season 1, especially during the sleepathon episode where he painted his eyes.
Hmm.
That was cheeky and fun. Um, but so I just think that Alejandro was unnecessary. Heather's redemption should have happened in season 2, and Justin should have been the big villain to make it to the final 3, and it should have been a juxtaposition with Heather in the final 3 of season 1. And I have a whole podcast where I talk about how I would have changed Total Drama Action and how it would
Go
have changed the trajectory of the future season
go listen to it.
series.
We'll
Well,
link it. We'll
thank
try
you.
to link it if it's still out there.
That'd be great. I also felt like there were a few characters that were derailed again. And that was Courtney, Bridget, and especially DJ. I
Mm,
mean, like, to put insult to injury, DJ not only cheated in the last season, so he self-evicted a run that he could have gone all the way on. Like DJ could have won action. The underrated character first of all, but so character derailment in action, and then we get the celebrity manhunt special,
mm,
and we see that DJ is now living on a bus because they lost their home. He's poor. He doesn't have a house anymore. He doesn't have a shelter. And things are tough for him. His living circumstances are ridiculous. And then to add to that, all of a sudden you throw him in a new season only for him to be responsible for his entire team to lose all of the challenges moving forward, and he gets cursed with with this animalistic curse. It was just
yeah,
so weird.
it was weird.
I didn't love it. It was so spiteful and it wasn't funny to me. It was an overplayed gag, and I felt like DJ is one of those characters that you almost have to bring back to redeem. He's in the boat with Trent, where it's like those two characters just need to come back. I would have liked to see more of Cody without Sierra, because I felt like he didn't really have his own independence in this season, and so his character arc was kind of disappointing. And then, for the love of everything, please stop hurting Tyler. like,
Yeah,
like that poor
for real.
guy. It sucks too because it's like, Wayne just won a season. So what does that mean for Tyler? Well, it means he's never gonna win a season, because
Pretty
that
much.
archetype has now won, and so
Well, it hasn't stopped Zoe and
Tyler.
Sky and their archetype of being the Mary Sue, the athletic Mary Sue. But
That's fair, but neither of them canonically won. I mean, they were
true.
alternatives,
Sure.
but
Okay.
um, and they're decent alternatives, but yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. Maybe we will see a Tyler win if Total Drama comes back, but I just really doubt it. I think
I doubt it
Tyler's going
too.
to be
Yeah.
he's going to be retired for good, I think. And that's sad for me, but I'm still holding on hope for DJ and Trent.
And to your
Um
to your point for World Tour, something that I glossed over, but it speaks to your whole boundaries of the universe. They establish rules in the first episode as it relates to the songs, and then multiple characters go throughout the season not singing the songs, so they should have been eliminated. Cody should have been eliminated like 7 times, but obviously he wasn't. So I think that is a
yep.
detriment to World Tour as well. Is the clear and blatant, like, um disrespecting of their own boundaries that they've set. And I get it.
Yeah.
Whatever voice actors limits that they have, and scheduling issues, maybe if that's the case. But yeah, it's a little bit inexplicable for that. If you're gonna go out of the way to set that rule, then why would you break it and not have any repercussions? But whatever.
100%. For me, it's like my biggest gripes with the series is just the inconsistencies.
Yes.
And so it's like, we had talked earlier about like I have a problem with the fact that total drama is all of a sudden like, oh yeah, Scarlet, she's okay with killing people.
Hmm.
Like and I wouldn't have a problem with that if we had started with that kind of stuff. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
Mysteries of Kruger Mansion is a mystery. It has murder in it, right?
Hmm.
So I don't have an issue with murder inside of cartoons. What I do have an issue with is you've established a universe, you've established the rules within that universe, you've also established a tone, and then you've strayed away from that.
Yes.
That is where I have a problem. And so for me, it's not nostalgia that blinds me. If that were the case, action would not be number 9.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, it's really just about creating a solid foundation and sticking to it. I'm a firm believer that you can supersede your original intellectual property, which
Mm.
means that I think that Total Drama Island, um, I think that we could do better. I think we can, even though Total
Absolutely.
Drama
Yeah.
Island on your list is goated, right?
In comparison to what
But
came after, but yeah, it could definitely be better. Like, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's like I look at the Aliens franchise and it's like the second movie, the sequel, is better than the first. It's the best installment in the entire franchise.
Hmm.
And so it's totally possible. Number 4.
All right, it's a reboot season.
Ah,
It's a reboot season.
it's not.
Oh no! Wait, what's left?
uh,
Oh,
I have
it's Redonkulous. Yeah.
Redonkulous
Okay,
Race.
there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So Redonkulous Race is genuinely funny. We got to explore the world more. This is what I wanted.
Yeah.
I want to explore the world more. Like I felt like with Total Drama Island, it's like, I talk a big game about how, hey, we have to have consistencies within the universe itself. I felt like we didn't get to explore total drama, but we still saw the inconsistencies with the universe that was developed. And so with Redonkulous Race, it was a breath of fresh air where it was a return to form, where we reestablished those boundaries in the universe. We brought it back to the foundation of what was semi-realistic in a cartoon version, and it just felt grounded. It just felt grounded, and it was a solid season all around. Jeff winning, great. Again, I would have rather seen him win an actual total drama season, but I'll take what I can get. Um, and I hope to see a second season in the future. I think that they could improve their marketing, but all in all, they created something so magnificent. And so I don't want to dwell on the negative, even though I get so passionate about action. I I think that total drama is actually great. And so we should stick by that. And people, when you're making comments and you're trying to validate these opinions, please do so cordially. You never know. Somebody from Fresh TV might actually watch this. And we don't want people to feel bad. We want to inspire instead. Those are my criticisms so far of the prior seasons. But with Redonkulous Race, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. I think Redonkulous Race was a solid season. I think the only issue that I have with it is that it's not total drama.
Mm.
And so I love that we get to explore new territories. I love that we brought back some faces that are familiar, like Jeff and Owen and Noah, and I liked Noah in this season.
Dang right, you better have. No, okay.
I want to return to the chill vibes of total drama, and I feel like my top 3 embody that. And so you
Mm.
might be
We
kind of
disagree. We disagree here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you might
Yeah.
disagree with my top 3, but my number 3 is Total Drama Island Reboot Season 2.
Okay, good.
um I feel like Julia and MK carried this season, but I agree with you that Julia had a little bit too much plot armor. and I would have loved to have seen an independent MK run. There were a lot of shocking eliminations that I thought were awesome. I love that we got rid of Nichelle again before the merge. I did not see that coming. I thought she was going to be a finalist for sure, and I love that they shocked us because they didn't derail her character. They made her stronger.
True.
They brought her back and made her stronger. They didn't do what they did to Trent. It is not equivalent whatsoever. Nichelle had the capability to win that season, and it
And
was
Julia
due
Cannon.
to her own pride that she lost. So yeah, so she didn't. Damien,
Love
same
Damien.
thing. I
Love
thought
Damien.
I love Damien too, but I thought he was just an. I wasn't going to put my money on Wayne. I was going to put my money on Damien to win, but I was still pretty locked in on Wayne. Wayne was an obvious winner. I actually thought there was just too much of a focus on him, but there wasn't any reason to focus on him. I felt like Caleb. I loved him in the first half of the season. I love that he came back and he came back with a vengeance because he was the first one eliminated in the prior season. And then Priya is the team captain and she's trying to figure out who she should pick. And then she's like, well, wait, Caleb, he's got the bronze, but he's also like in an Ivy League. Dude's smart. Let's bring him on. And I was like, oh my gosh, let's go, Caleb. I was rooting for Caleb. Like, my biggest critique of this season is the second half of the season. The first half I felt like was fantastic.
First half was decent.
But then the next half, I felt like we spent way too much time with Priya, way too much time with Julia, who had a lot of time in the last season. And I felt like Caleb became really bland and he couldn't make his own decisions for himself, which was very strange because to be as buff as Caleb is, you have to take initiative on your health. So this is somebody who should be able to make decisions. Same with the fact that he went to an Ivy League. Like, this was completely out of character for him to be so torn between the antagonist and what should have been his girlfriend. Like, that's a black and white decision there. And so for me, this season, even though I have my gripes about it, I think it was decent. My biggest issue is the finale. I don't love having 3 people in the finale. I'm just not for that. I think we need more time to build up to the finale, and that includes building up the finalists. And I think we should only build up 2 of them, not 3. If I had my way, I would have had a Caleb versus MK finale. That's a big hot take, but I would have made Caleb a lot more competent. I would have made MK a lot more sleuthy, devious, and I would have had MK become kind of the big dog at that point, even though Caleb is kind of the big dog. But I would have had Caleb win because that is a story that has never been told on Total Drama, which is the 2 tandem winners of the reboot are also a power couple. Like,
And first
because
boot to
think
first
about
place. Well, I guess Jeff kind
yeah,
of did
first, but that's a spinoff,
that. Yeah,
you know,
doesn't
and
count.
that's my biggest gripe about the reboot season. But because it was a return to form, it's in my number 3 spot.
See, I'm not gonna like chastise you for that. I think it's a totally valid opinion. Like, I think there's a part of me that ranked it so low because it is what made me realize how much more I want from the show, and that's again why I started creating the reality project. I think it's totally valid that it's number 3. I think for all intents and purposes, like, it does feel very survivory. It feels very like they tried to go back to their roots, but just in a modern way. So I'm not. We'll disagree. We'll agree to disagree on this one.
One thing to kind of support you, I felt like the win was not deserved with Wayne. Them putting on these squirrel costumes and parachuting down to the freaking
Yeah, and he
dock
smashes through the dock
where you
and
could
then
win, and he
wins. Yeah.
smashes through the dock. That's Total Drama action levels of just absurdity.
Yeah.
And so I do have an issue with the finale. The finale really is my biggest gripe.
I think
But
you can say that for a lot of Total Drama seasons. Like the finale, they miss, I think, on the finales more than they hit. Which is tough because that's like what the entire season's building towards.
well, my number 2 slot is Total Drama Island reboot season
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
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 I just felt like it was a return to form. They went back to their roots. It was really nice, and I felt like they handled the characters well in this season. And it was also a good display of current modern day stereotypes. And so it was just a modern version of Total Drama Island. And I was like, all for it. I remember when the cast dropped, people were dogging the designs, especially Julia. People were dogging on Julia.
I loved her
And I was
design.
like, I loved it too. I was like, these designs actually look great. Like, I felt like they stayed consistent in their style, but they just explored different shapes. And that's fantastic. Like, you look
Yeah.
at Z, that character genuinely made me laugh in this season. Like,
Yeah. He's
I think
funny.
that these rankings are also influenced on how much I laughed in any given season. And I think when you get more absurd, the more I'm expecting the absurdity, so I don't laugh. So that's number 2. Number 1, by no surprise, is Total Drama Island. There's really not a lot to say here. I think that Total Drama Island, it was flawless. And it might just be because they anticipated to only have one season. Maybe that's how they should write future seasons then moving forward. But Total Drama Island brought everything great from the other seasons and took it to another level before they made the other seasons. It just felt like the comedy hit really hard in this season. You know, I think of that one scene where Jeff is kind of stepping up as the team captain, and then all of a sudden he trips and he falls, and he's like, "Oh, my leg, I'm down!" And then like the camera's zooming in and trying to find where the injury is,
Yeah.
and then eventually we see the splinter, and then it zooms out, and then it like zooms out more, and it's like the tiniest sliver. I think that that is like pure comedy gold, and how everybody is like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think he was gonna pull through." You know, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is hilarious. That's good writing. And also, it's with Total Drama Island, they did a really good job with comedy irony. Which means that the comedy was ironic, which was intelligent. And so, the humor was just on point. It was on point. The characters were lovable. I mean, yeah, there were the Katies and Sadies that we didn't really care about, and we never saw them in future seasons, which I'm okay with. It knew what it wanted to be. It had a focus on the merge cast even before the merge hit, and I really enjoyed Total Drama Island. I don't really have a lot of gripes about season 1.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's nostalgia. I mean, yes, it set the tone for indie animated shows, for even its own series, to where we got all of these other seasons. We got 8 other seasons, including Dramarama.
We don't include that.
Now, that's not to say that it can't be bested. I believe it can, and I want there to be a future season that beats Total Drama Island season 1. But right now, it is securely number 1 for me, and it's not even close.
Absolutely.
There
Yeah.
is a huge margin between this season and everything that came after it.
The pacing was just noticeably slow, but not in a bad way. Like it was relaxing. Like that scene that you just described about Jeff getting injured. Just brought back like I can picture that scene in my head, and just like they took the time to make that an entire scene. Like that was an entire scene. Like they had confessionals about it. They allowed the universe to breathe, to build, and to grow at its own pace. They had 26 episodes and 22 main characters to tell this story. And I think that is something that's missing from today's cartoons and animation is, you know, everyone's attention span is super short, where we got to scroll. You know, Netflix has a rule where you have to remind everybody in the script every like page of what the plot is, so that because people are scrolling and forgetting and not watching what the actual thing is on TV. So it in this short attention span world, I think it's really fun and interesting to look back at Total Drama Island and see just how successful it was at such a slow pace. And again, I don't mean slow in a bad way. It just means slow, and it took its time to really really just establish the universe and establish who these characters are.
Total Drama Island, it paved the path for a lot of indie animated shows. That's what our podcast is about. It's about indie animation as well as reality television, and Total Drama is that perfect middleman who that inspired a lot of these indie animated shows. That's why we have the indie drama community right now, because there's so many shows that have transpired from that. And so if you want to see an extended version of this podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about those different indie animated shows, and we're going to do a little game together, actually, where I get to quiz Dan on some of these indie drama shows that are in the community, and we'll talk a little bit about the future of indie animation as well as what we think the future of Total Drama Island is, whether we think it has a future or not.
Yeah, so the extended versions of these podcast episodes will be available to members of the $10 tier and above. So if you guys want to watch any bonus segments, any bonus clips, or anything that we feel was juicy and wanted to leave for you guys, go ahead and watch those extended and bonus segments.
This week's question of the day is, which indie drama series are you most excited to watch grow and develop? Now, leave that in the comment section below, as well as you know what, just interact with us. Leave that anywhere, if that's the comment section or the Patreon or even just like a news feed section. Who freaking knows? But comment that somewhere, because we'd love to see what your comments are and your opinions are. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast as two showrunners get to explore the indie animation side of Total Drama Island as well as reality television. Thank you for joining us on the Final Marshmallow. Take care.
Peace out.